The Duval Rundown, driven by Jacksonville Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram Westside, home of the lifetime warranty.
Good morning. Welcome to another edition of Duval Rundown. I'm Hayes Carlyon. Please be joined with Ryan O'Halloran, sports columnist of the Florida Times-Union. Ryan, good morning.
Hayes, how we doing? It's finally starting to warm up here after a January chill, but I would have rather sat outside in 20-degree temperatures than watched that game on Sunday night.
Yeah, not a lot of drama in the Super Bowl. Before we get into that, because there is something involving that I'm interested in getting your thoughts on. I want to give you guys some housekeeping about Duval Rundown. So now that we've gotten into the offseason officially, we'll be scaling back a bit. We will not be doing a Monday or a Friday show anymore, but Ryan and I will still be joining you on Wednesday, and that day could float if it's a big news week, if something huge is happening. But you can usually expect Duval Rundown Wednesday. We'll be moving it to the afternoon to about 3:15 starting next week. So that'll be a lot of fun. So this will be our final Wednesday morning, and we'll be Wednesday afternoons moving forward after today's show. And again, no more Monday with Frank and Friday with Rick. We'll resume that when training camp begins. So get that out of the way. But Ryan, in looking at it, I do think there's some parallels between the Jaguars build and the Seahawks build. The Seahawks obviously have been excellent in the draft and have done a good job of sprinkling in key free agents, making some savvy trades. It kind of feels like the Jaguars are somewhat on that path and certainly could close the gap with another strong offseason. How do you view that?
Yeah, I agree. And I researched this a little bit last week. And, when things are going well for an organization, you're drafting 20, 25, 32. Well, look who the Seahawks have gotten in the back half of that first round. Smith and Jigba, their best player. Gray Zabel started at left guard. Byron Murphy, their nose tackle. And then the other thing is that I think relates well to the Jaguars is they've taken a big swing in the trade market. And that was for Leonard Williams. And then a free agency with Kupp in Darnold. So I do think far be it for me to use the term blueprint, but it does serve as a lesson for the Jaguars. Okay, they did this. Do we have the capabilities to do that? Do we have a need to do that?
One thing that was really interesting is, so I went back just out of curiosity to the October 12th game between Seattle and the Jaguars, a 20-12 Seahawks win here in Jacksonville. Man, it is amazing how things change in the course of a season, because that wasn't exactly week one. I mean, the game was played in mid-October. The Jaguars are coming off a short week, a win over the Chiefs on Monday Night Football. You look at how Seattle stayed incredibly healthy throughout the year. I mean, you look at they didn't have Witherspoon that game. He was inactive, and obviously, to your point, he's an elite player. But boy, did they stay incredibly healthy. It was the week that Tyson Campbell was traded, so you had Newsome, play and get burned. But it was just really interesting going through it. In terms of Hainsey didn't play, he was inactive. Obviously they hadn't traded yet for Jacoby Myers. The Seahawks hadn't made the trade for Shaheed yet. There was Brent Strange didn't play. He was out. Cole Van Lannon didn't play a snap on offense. Trayvon Walker only played 16 snaps. Agba played 36 in that game. Devin Lloyd had 15 defensive snaps. Ventrell Miller, 29 defensive snaps. De'Ami Brown played 49 offensive snaps. Parker Washington, 25 offensive snaps. It's incredible how a team can change throughout the course of a year. And, and some of that was injury related in terms of Trayvon and Devin Lloyd and Brenton Strange being on IR. But it was interesting going through it and seeing Cole Van Lannon wasn't even a factor in the offense yet. Who would have thought that day he'd go on to get a big contract extension? Who would have thought that, Parker Washington and De'Ami Brown's roles would completely flip by the time you got to the end of the season? So not anything to take away from it long term. It just was interesting to go back and look at that game again on October 12th. Wasn't like it was a right out of the gate game. and how much the fortunes changed for certain players on this Jaguars team.
Yeah, and the miracle of that day was it was only 20-12.
Yeah.
It didn't really feel like the Jaguars were ever in it because they couldn't block Seattle. And, Seattle was down in the secondary. The Jaguars weren't able to take advantage of that because I think it was their second worst pass protection game of the year. The worst was the next week against the Rams, over 20 pressures or disruptions combined. So what the Seahawks showed, getting back to our point that I made before, and it relates to that game, is the Jaguars got to get there with four-man rush more often. I mean, they had to send extra guys this year way too often. And a lot of times those players didn't get there to create pressure, sacks, hits, whatever. Seattle was a low blitz, high pressure team. That means they got there with four. And I think if you have the number one takeaway for this Jaguar defense is the takeaways are probably going to even out a little bit. The injuries are definitely going to even out a little bit because the Jaguars were pretty healthy throughout the season as well in terms of number of players used. But to me, and I'll be banging this drum until they do something about it, is show me what your plan is at the pass rush spot right now, interior and also on the edge.
What do you think it should be?
I mean, I'll stick with Max Crosby. I mean, you could tell that gained a little bit of steam over the weekend when, he's finally saying, okay, the Raiders have a coach, so I'm going to be a pro and, listen to him. There's no reason for Crosby to stay. And, because that is a massive build going on in Las Vegas, and they haven't proven they've been able to build anything since they moved to frankly, in the 90s. So if I'm Crosby, I want out. That may help the asking price maybe lower a little bit. The Raiders are like, okay, we just get this money off your books. But here's the thing. The secondary thing, and you're going to hear a lot about defensive tackles. It's not a great draft for defensive tackles who can rush the passer. Well, those don't grow on trees in the trade market either. So I think it's going to have to take a big swing on an edge guy. And then if you're able to retain Walker as a part of that deal, work him more inside on third down just to get some kind of interior push.
Well, you obviously wrote a column about Max Crosby about a month or so ago. Do you think the asking price is still where you had it at that point, which I think was, what was it, like a second this year and then the next 2 ones?
Yeah, so Walker at 2 and 2 1s. And people were saying, well, that's too much. Well, I don't care because that's what the Raiders are going to ask because that's what Dallas got for Micah Parsons. Different player, different impact. But if I'm the Raiders, I have a big ask to see who will bite. And the reason I included that second is that the Jaguars don't have a first this year. So you got to, if you're a Raiders, you got to be able to get something this year to say, hey, we're trying to win a little bit. We're not banking it all toward the future. So, that would be if I'm the Raiders, that'd be my asking price. The Jaguars would probably counter saying, we're not giving you 2 1s. He's played 4,000 snaps. He may be, his prime may be limited. Well, I don't care if his prime is 2 more years. He's a difference maker.
Yeah, without a doubt. If the Raiders either keep Crosby or deal him elsewhere, get a better deal, maybe from a club that does have a first-round pick this year, let's say that's a prerequisite for the Raiders as they look to move Crosby, is that they've got to get a 1 in this draft, to your point. What are some plan B pivots that you could see Gladstone looking at? Yeah,
I mean, Trey Hendrickson is a free agent, but he has his injury history feels like it's been a little up and down. After that, though, the pickings are slim. I mean, you can always grab an edge guy in day 2 or day 3 of the draft and work him in with Strigo and Green. Can they play the run on early downs? But yeah, I do think improving this pass rush is either a home run swing or you're going to try and get a stand-up double in the draft.
Do you think in terms of having 11 picks, it doesn't feel like they have that many needs really? Could you see a scenario in the draft where Gladstone, particularly if, let's just say they don't make a big trade, so they have the second and the 3/3, and again, 11 total picks. Do you think this is a draft where you do see some significant double dipping, maybe even going back for thirds at a certain spot? Like, do you draft 3 or 4 defensive linemen? with 11 selections, because I mean, again, as you go through the entire 53, I mean, it doesn't scream out for help at a lot of different places. It seems like it's defensive line and it's corner. And maybe you draft like a backup tight end to Strange at some point, and maybe a running back. But it doesn't seem like it's a roster that's littered with immediate needs other than D-line and corner.
Yeah, and I could see them, I could see them double dipping on a position like linebacker or corner. Got to think about your future at safety. So I think this is going to be a defense-heavy draft. One of the side bets we got to make on draft weekend is, okay, how many picks do they end up making? I mean, 11 is a lot because not all those guys are going to make the 53. Where I think Gladstone will be active is at the front end of the third round. Okay, I have a couple of these. We want a player at this position. There's now 2 of those left on our board. We got to move up and get them. Also, day 3, does he start trading some of those 6th and 7ths to get a 6th or a 7th next year and start that cupboard over again? So, because then you can parlay that at the deadline, maybe, if you're in contention. So I think Gladstone is going to be busy because I think as a young GM, he's going to get bored and prioritize players with production that can help them right away.
Well, and again, it doesn't seem to be an overly strong draft. So you'd have to think there will be instances as you get probably midway into the second round where Gladstone and company are eyeing, okay, we like this guy, but if we don't get this guy, there is a tremendous drop off at this position. Let's go up and make a move. And again, it's not that, once you get to that point in the draft, moving up from third round to late second round, that's not very cost prohibitive. You got to find a partner that's willing to do it. Trent Osborne helping us out on Duval Rundown, which we certainly appreciate. Trent, let's say hello to our sponsor, please.
Baloo for Jacksonville Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram Westside, your locally owned commercial truck headquarters and proud partner of the Jaguars. For hard-to-find ProMaster vans or commercial trucks for your fleet, visit jaxwest.com today.
Ryan, what do you guys have coming up in the TU?
Well, as soon as we're done with this, going down to Daytona for Media Day for the 500. I'll see you Thursday at the Players for a media event. We'll be the ones not playing golf. UNFJU Saturday, and then the 500 on Sunday. So sort of a non-football week, but we'll obviously have our eyes on that. And real quick, I want to talk about that second round because I looked it up during our commercial there. The Jaguars don't pick until 56th. I mean, that is a long wait. And that's a question that I'd be interested to get from James Gladstone is if you're sitting at 56, when do you even start working the phones seriously? Is it 45?
40, yeah.
I mean, it's without having to mortgage, a couple of your third rounds to move up 15 spots. So I do think and I'll probably write this eventually this offseason, this is still an organization that needs volume. They need I think they need a lot of picks because they have a lot of holes. They're a year ahead of schedule. And now it's about, okay, can they get a second draft where guys can stay on the field to help them win games as rookies?
How do you think they'll view the comp pick formula with Lloyd and ETN? Do you think that, let's assume they've decided they can't keep Lloyd, or, Lloyd's people believe they're going to get more money elsewhere. And for whatever reason, ETN, same thing. Like, it just doesn't look like it's going to work out. If you're the Jaguars, I'm assuming Lloyd would bring back a third round comp pick in 27. I would think ETN 4th, 5th round comp pick probably. If you're Gladstone, do you let that formula play out and protect those comp picks, or are you aggressive in free agency? And this obviously assumes they're not able to make some blockbuster trade for Max Crosby or another big-time player. So in lieu of a big trade, do you think that they'll kind of wait and protect those comp picks, or do you think he'll be aggressive in signing whoever he can sign, and obviously with negating the comp pick that you might get back, because that's obviously based on who you lost, but also how much did you spend? So how do you think that'll work?
Well, they'd have to move a lot of money around to be able to sign somebody that would maybe match Devin Lloyd's money. So I would think that it's on their radar that if they're gonna make a big move this offseason, it would be via trade. Then they'll work the margins with the second wave of free agency. As it stands right now, they're not in a position to add a big money guy unless they get really creative. So, if I'm Gladstone and things aren't going nowhere with Lloyd, I would probably not try and match that money going out with money coming in, because you're probably going to be a third round pick. ETN will be a fourth. And real question on ETN is, we talked about this a couple weeks ago, is the flood of running backs hitting the market. Is that going to force a tailback or two to sign early to stay with their team, knowing that's what they got on the table? And are the Jaguars one of those teams? May they take a crack at ETN? ETN should want to hit the market. There's plenty of bad teams out there that are willing to pay him. So, I would say Devin Lloyd is a no shot to return. And, maybe the door is cracked a little bit for ETN.
I was surprised in looking at some of the free agent lists that analysts are putting out there that they've got Buster Brown fairly high as a free agent corner, because it seems like he wouldn't be a good fit for a lot of teams just because of his, speed deficiency. But where are you with Buster Brown, and what kind of a contract do you think he'll get, and do you think he stays in Jacksonville?
Yeah, I think it's a priority to re-sign Brown just out of necessity, and because Newsome's a free agent. Travis Hunter's coming off his knee injury. Jordan Lewis is coming off his foot injury, and then that leaves Jerry and Jones. So I think Buster Brown's cap has some leverage on the Jaguars if they want to re-sign him, because Newsome is not in their plans. You haven't heard anything other than you haven't heard that he is, so just assume he's not. But I think for Brown and the Jaguars, he's easier to keep and maybe overpay a little bit than it is to find another starter.
Yeah, good stuff, Ryan. We certainly appreciate it. Again, Duval Rundown will be staying on Wednesdays with Ryan throughout the offseason, but we will be moving to the afternoon, so that'll be 3:15 next week. We'll certainly look forward to that. And again, we're in the offseason mode now, so no Monday, no Friday Duval Rundown. It'll just be Ryan on Wednesdays, and we'll certainly look forward to that. Ryan, appreciate it. And again, tell us, Jacksonville.com, what people can expect to see this week.
Yeah, so Daytona coverage, maybe a golf column, some UNFJU before we start to get in the combine mode. I'll be there in 2 weeks for the Times Union Indianapolis. And my plea with this move to a 3:15 start, Hayes, to the Jaguars is roster moves at 1, trades at 1:30, extensions at 2.
Love it.
We don't ask for much.
Yes.
Just get it done before 3:15.
Absolutely. That sounds good. Ryan, certainly appreciate it. Have a wonderful day, and we'll look forward to talking with you next Wednesday.
All right, Hayes. Thanks.
All right. That's going to do it for us on Duval Rundown. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next Wednesday. Until then, I'm Hayes Carlyon for Trent Osborne. Thanks so much for watching Duval Rundown.